The weight of an honest heart. Come closer tonight. I'd like to tell you a simple story. No kings, no wars, no great fortunes. Only a basket of apricots, and a lesson that cannot be measured by money. Sometimes life does not place us on a grand stage. Instead, it tests us in the smallest moments. When no one is watching, when the choice seems too small to matter. And yet those quiet moments often reveal who we truly are. Many years ago, there was an old apricot seller who came to the town every morning. His weathered donkey walked slowly through the streets, while two large baskets of freshly picked apricots swayed gently at its sides. People knew him well, not because he shouted the loudest, but because his fruit was always sweet, golden, sun-warmed and fragrant. Children would smile when they saw him. Mothers trusted him. Even those who bought nothing would stop for a moment just to greet the old man. He welcomed everyone with the same gentle smile. Never in a hurry, never impatient. One morning, I arrived at work with a friend named Thomas. As we stepped outside for some fresh air, I looked around for the old vendor. But he wasn't there. Instead, a young boy stood across the street selling apricots from a small woven basket. He couldn't have been more than 12 years old. His clothes were simple. His hands were dusty from the orchard. Yet his face carried a quiet kindness that asked for nothing in return. Thomas smiled, though not with kindness, with opportunity. He gently touched my arm and whispered, "Watch carefully, I'll show you how to buy fruit without paying full price." I wish I had known then that before the morning was over it wouldn't be the boy who was being tested. Thomas walked confidently toward the boy as though he had done this many times before. The young seller greeted us politely and carefully placed his basket on the ground. The apricots were beautiful. Some were golden. Some carried a soft blush of orange and red. The sweet scent of ripe fruit filled the morning air. Thomas looked into the basket, then gave a quiet laugh. "So," he said, "you've hidden the best ones at the bottom." The boy looked surprised. "I haven't hidden anything, sir." Thomas reached deep into the basket, picked out a large apricot, and before the boy could say a word, he took a bite. The juice ran down his fingers. He smiled. "This one is excellent." The boy simply watched him. No complaint, no anger, only patience. "How much are they?" Thomas finally asked. The boy answered softly, "My father told me to sell them 7 for 10 cents. Thomas nodded, as if he were doing difficult mathematics. Then, while pretending to count the fruit, he quietly slipped another apricot into his hand, and then another. Each movement was quick, almost impossible to notice. He smiled the entire time, as though cleverness was something to be proud of. The young boy carefully counted the apricots once again. He trusted his own hands more than suspicion. Thomas handed him a few coins. Not enough. Just enough to make the mistake seem small. The boy looked at the money for a brief moment. Then he looked up and smiled. "Thank you, sir." He gently closed the basket, lifted it into his arms, and quietly walked away. I watched him disappear into the crowd. Something about that smile stayed with me. It wasn't the smile of someone who had been fooled. It was the smile of someone who had chosen kindness over argument. Thomas laughed to himself. "You see," he said proudly, "if you're too honest, the world will always take advantage of you." Then he popped another apricot into his mouth, completely certain that he had won. Just then the old apricot seller finally appeared. His little donkey walked beside him, just as it did every morning. The moment he saw us, his face lit up with a warm smile. "My friends," he called, "you've come at the perfect time. These are the sweetest apricots of the season." Thomas stepped forward confidently. I'll take some. The old man nodded with pleasure. But first, he said with a gentle laugh, you must taste them. Before Thomas could answer, the old vendor placed a ripe apricot into his hand. Go on, tell me if it's sweet. Thomas took a bite. It was delicious. The old man smiled. Then try this one as well. And another. And this little fellow, it's too ripe to stay in the basket. Thomas laughed. For a moment he forgot all about bargaining. The old vendor carefully chose the finest apricots, placing them one by one into our bag. When he finished, Thomas paid for them, thanked the old man, and we quietly walked away. A few streets later, Thomas stopped. Out of habit, he counted the apricots. His smile slowly disappeared. He counted again. Something wasn't right. The old vendor had given us fewer apricots than expected. I looked at Thomas, waiting for him to complain. But he didn't. Not this time. Because suddenly, he remembered. The apricots he had eaten. The extra fruit the old man had placed into his hands. The kindness. The trust. Without realizing it, the old vendor had simply counted those gifts as part of the purchase. Not to punish him. Not to embarrass him. Only to remind him that generosity should never be mistaken for weakness. Thomas lowered his head. For the first time that morning, he felt the true weight of what he had done. The old storyteller slowly closes his book. He smiles gently and says, my friend, some people spend their lives weighing fruit, others weigh the human heart. He pauses. The old vendor lost a few apricots, but he gained something far more valuable. A man who would never cheat another person again. The lantern flickers softly. And perhaps that was the greatest bargain either of them ever made. Until our lantern shines again, take care.